Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for making time to join us for this webinar. All right, without further ado, we're going to be proceeding to start the webinar. And for those of you who have just joined us, very good afternoon to you. Xiao Wu Hao, Namaste and Selamat Tengah Hari. Well, my name is Annie and I'm from Eblity. So welcome to our second installation of Restore Health for Autism Spectrum and Other Learning Difficulties webinar series. So for today's webinar, it is brought to you by Eblity, as well as WHA, that's World Health Alliance, Integrated Health Center, IHC, and Lifelong Learning Council. Okay, so we're going to be sharing you more with regards to the organizer's background. So we'll start off with Eblity. Eblity is a collaborative platform that facilitates educational and life skill training intervention for special needs students and slow learners. Okay, and moving on to World Health Alliance, or WHA, they are actually a people-to-people collaborative seeking solutions to serve world health. So for our guest speaker for today, she is Dr. Deibby Mamahit, who is from Integrated Health Center, or IHC. And of course, IHC is a holistic science-based healthcare service provider that offers complementary as well as alternative approaches towards healing and health. So their in-house practitioners will partner with you to create a personalized care program that is tailored to your needs. So additionally, Dr. Deibby, who has a great passion for autism and learning disabilities, as well as brain injuries and brain degeneration. So in fact, many children with developmental issues have greatly benefited from her unique programs. Well, before I hand over to our guest speaker, firstly, I would like everyone, to take a minute to participate in a little poll that we have actually put together. Okay, so I'll be making the poll available right now, and it'd be great if you could actually, participate in this little poll. So by casting your votes, we will be able to get to know you a bit better, okay? So please proceed to cast your votes right now, because I'll be keeping this poll open for the next 10 seconds. Okay, so secondly, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type your questions into this little question box that is located within the Zoom control panel. Okay, so this is applicable only for Zoom participants. And of course, for those of you watching this live streaming on Facebook, we have not forgotten about you. You may leave your questions or type your questions into the Facebook panel. We will, of course, try our best to bring up as many questions as possible during the question and answer segment. All right, thank you so much, everyone, for casting your votes. Truly appreciate it. I'll be ending the poll segment right now. And of course, with that, moving along without further ado, please allow me to hand over to our guest speaker. Okay, she is Dr. Deibby Mamahit. Over to you, Dr. Deibby.
Thank you so much, Annie.
Welcome.
What a special afternoon to have all of you here. I'm very delighted to be here to share you some learnings that I got in my journey in helping my own children. Thank you to Eblity to allow me this opportunity. Of course, as well with the other organization, WHA and IHC. Thank you so much. Okay, so my children, my first and second son were diagnosed as autistic with different degrees of severity. For parents, what do we experience? It was very scary when we as parents receive the diagnosis of autism. For those of you who are parents, you must have felt this, and many of us actually gone through a prolonged period of time before we finally come to terms with this situation. Why? Because it's as if our child is trapped behind a piece of glass. They can't get out and we can't get in. Even medical school didn't prepare me to be a parent of an autistic child. Moreover, 2 children who are autistic. We have fear of their future. What if the situation like this happens?
Demands because they feel unable
What
to
if
process,
they turn
deal,
to an adult who
and
can't help
function.
themselves? This fear lingers on every parent. This fear were the propelling factor that brought me to take a crazy journey to many different countries, to many different places in the search for answer. I am very fortunate and grateful to find guiding lights, teachers, mentors in many different parts of the world. The journey started in 2009 when we found out about our child's condition, and it has not stopped. I tried so many things through the years and finally come to some understanding and answer. And these are the things that I want to share with you. This chart came from CDC. And you will see that actually there's a relationship between autism and immune conditions. They are more likely to have asthma, skin allergies, food allergy, headache, diarrhea, colitis. One thing I noticed in the beginning of the journey is that my kids had been very sickly since they were very young. All these diseases are in the tick list of what my children experience. And this happens to a lot of other children in the spectrum. As I mentioned earlier, in the span of a decade, I traveled to so many different places. And one of my teachers, Dr. Martha Herbert, published this paper in 2005, that the autistic brain is not simply wired differently, but neuroinflammation is a part of the pathology. And this is Dr. Martha Herbert. She is at that time was the assistant professor of neurology in Harvard Medical School. This paper in 2010 shows that autism may be in fact a systemic disorder with connection to abnormal immune responses. And this paper in 2018 shows that there is a strong inflammation state in ASD, often linked with immune system dysfunction. And now we come to term that the gut inflammation and brain have a lot of things to do together. This paper in 2020, very recent, shows that intestinal inflammation alters brain function. And why are we keep talking about autism, inflammation, and immune system? Because it shows that inflammation is a key factor. And if we can change inflammation, we can do something for these children. So let's say this is a brain and the brain is on fire. What actually happened to the child when the brain is on fire? I want to show you a clip that shows you how a child would feel, how a child would hear things, how a child would see things or smell things if their brain have neuroinflammation. You will understand now why the child will behave in a certain way.
Six, seven, 8, 9. Take my hand. naughty. I'm autistic, and I just get too much information.
Do you feel comfortable with that video clip? I don't think anyone here would feel comfortable. But that is how the child feels at every waking hour. And if the child actually react towards it, it's not because the child is naughty, but because their brain is on fire. And why are they feeling that way? If you notice from this picture, all the areas that has to do with sensories is in the cortex of the brain. And this is the area that got affected when neuroinflammation happens. So now we go to what can cause more inflammation, what can flame the fire. Stress is a very big thing that can cause more inflammation. Lack of nutrients, leaky gut infection, and food. We will talk about it later. But this stress is one thing that we can actually, as parents and people who care about these children, can do something about. What would parents feel when they have kids in the spectrum? They have the pressure. Why? Because firstly, they are scared. It's hard to imagine the child that you have can never be independent. How can you leave them? The parents are also confused. There are myriad things that you would find when you go and search the internet. There is no one set solution on what you can do. There's so many different opinions and there's so many conflicting takes on how to help autistic children. And there's going to be a lot of blame to others and especially self-blame. And eventually the parents would feel lost. And all these things amount to a huge stress, a huge pressure. The children, as much as they have, as the limitation that they have, they are sensitive. Even though some of them might not know how to speak, they can feel how you feel. And this would happen. They would feel worthless because the parents' expectation and disappointment can cause them to feel unloved. The way they are being educated with drills and repeated action might make them feel that they're always being corrected. They're like victim of the situation. They got left behind. The other children keep on progressing and then they stick doing ABC, stick learning what to say when they need to go somewhere. They got misunderstood and they feel blamed for the situation. People talk about how weird they are and how naughty they are. This caused a huge stress on the child, and this actually will lead to more inflammation. Can you imagine? The brain is already inflamed. On top of that, added to all the stresses that they have, it will lead to aggression, to tantrums. What actually happened that we see as a behavioral issue is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath, we have the stress, the fear, the heartache, the disappointment, the gut inflammation, the brain inflammation, the brain injury. And we, as parents, many times, in order to help them to learn better, we stop them from doing what they perceive as helping themselves. So when the child flaps their hand, it is not because they are naughty. It is the way they have found on how to calm themselves down, how to help themselves through the situation. And when we actually say quiet hand, or stop flapping your hand, stop jumping about, stop running, we are actually stopping themselves from helping themselves. in my learning, how is the best approach to help them? The first and the most important part is always the mind, because this is something that they can receive help immediately if the parents start to understand the importance of being loving and being present and being just for the child without expectation. The body, by reducing the inflammation, and the brain, the same, by reducing the inflammation in the brain and repair. So I want to tell you that it's very important to shift from fear-based mindset to love-based mindset. I know that many people think that it's a cliche, but it's true. Love covers all things. How would you get away from the fear? I want to tell you my story. When my second son was 5 years old, my first son was 6. At that time, my 5-year-old didn't know how to speak yet. And my 6 was just learning how to speak. I was with my other child, my 4th child, and I was holding to my baby, and I was feeding my first child. And what happened is that my boy suddenly pointed at outside the door. It's outside in the grill area, in the balcony, and he was like, I was wondering what really happened. So I turned my head around and I saw my second child was outside the grill. He was 8th floor high, and there is nothing beneath. So I quickly looked at my helper because I was holding my baby. I couldn't put him down. And she ran outside to the grill and caught him and brought him in. But that was an awakening for us, because then I realized that no matter what happened to him, I am willing to accept it as long as he's still with me, as long as I have him with me. We need to understand that only when the child feels love, then they will learn to trust and they will want to hear us. And when we want to share things to them, the pointers in love-based mindset, that instead of being in distress, and watch your being in distress because your child is very smart. Even though they are not speaking, yes, they are very smart. They can feel it. If your child needs acceptance, tell yourself, if my child needs acceptance, I can give it. You're going to accept that your child is not well, that your child is not going to speak the whole sentence today. And you won't force your child to say, I want water, when your child can say, wah, wah. You'll know that it takes a lot for your child to be able to say the word wah. And you will want to celebrate it like crazy. It's like, you're saying wah, it's so wonderful. Thank you so much for saying wah. That is wonderful. I know that you take so much actually to be able to say this word. Next time you can say water, but thank you so much for saying wah. If you know that your child is flapping their hands, not to drive you crazy, but because their brain is inflamed, you will actually be able to stop yourself from stopping your child and celebrate your child. It is important to do this, because only when you do this, you can bond with your child by accepting and celebrating them. Again, the approach must come from the mind, the body, and the brain. We are not going to talk much about the body and the brain, because I think the most important part of the puzzle is always starts from the mind. But I'm going to just touch a bit on what you can do to stop the body to be more inflamed. It's by removing all this food that can cause inflammation in the body. I know that many of these children live on pizza and pasta and Coca-Cola because that is the easiest thing for them to eat because it has sugar and sugar is addictive. But all this food, gluten, food with a lot of additives, sweet beverages, processed meat, dairy product, sugar, processed carbohydrate, and GMO food are all inflammatory to the body. And if we can stop this food, if we can bring our mind to an understanding that your child is not trying to make your life difficult, but your child needs you to accept them as they are in order for them to handle the inflammation in their body, then you are onto a great start. You are about to do the 50% of the journey that is needed for your child. I have a story about my second child, the one in the picture. We went to a food court one day with him. While we were looking for seats, we saw an unkempt looking man who is eating French fries. Looking by the appearance of this man, it looks like he probably has not bathed for months. He's probably even homeless. Then you know what my son did? He dashed to that man, took the man's French fries from him, and ate it. We were very petrified. There were so many wrong things in the scenario. And we can only apologize while the man was screaming away at our son. I think this scenario might happen to some of you, even though probably it's not going to be as dramatic as our situation. But now with so much improvement, he is a 13-year-old boy who is from a very severely asthmatic, very weak, who didn't have a single word, who cannot even use the staircase. He's now speaking words, having English and math lesson, learning bicycle, and on his journey to recovery. He now has better skill than this, but this is something that was the first time when we realized that he is maneuvering his bicycle very well. And he has the loveliest smile. Don't you think so? I'm biased, I'm the mother. And this is my first child. My eldest son, who totally lost his language at 2.5. He is now a cheeky teenager, a full-fledged happy boy.
Love is always the answer.
So have hope because good things take time. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you
Back
so
to you, Annie.
Debbie. Wow, really, thank you so much. And of course, I'm like, wow, you know, by that session that you have shared with us earlier on, it's truly heartwarming and very inspiring indeed. Yeah. Okay, everyone. So we shall now commence the question and answer segment. Okay, so for all Zoom participants, please type your questions into the question box located within the control panel. And as for those of you watching this live streaming via Facebook, you may do so by typing your question through Facebook. Okay, so Dr. Debbie, are you ready for your first question?
Yes.
Okay, so the first question is coming from Maria. Okay, so Maria would like to know if a child was diagnosed to have two disabilities, such as Autism Spectrum Disorder and intellectual disability, which disability should be addressed first?
Okay, I usually will assess the child and will figure out what is the real situation. It's differ from one to another. There is no a big pointer or an arrow that can show which is going first, but for each of every child, they need love to grow. And no matter what is the disabilities, there is always an answer to it. I I would really like to see Maria or by Zoom or doing an online consultation if she wants to, because each child has a very distinctive reason why they have the condition.
Okay, got that. Yes. So Maria, hope that answers your question. And we'll move on to the second question. It's coming from Lileth Ramos. So Lileth would like to know, how does she recognize a kid with autism? Is there
Okay,
any?
so autism always have a lot of different manifestation. The first thing is that you can see clearly is the eye contact. Then the repetitive behavior that they do. Sometimes it could be with their hands, with their body, or they like to line up things. There's also a degree of sensory issues. So some kids might not like being touched, or some kids are tend to wrap certain things in the house over and over again. So actually, it's a combination of communication, sensory issues that happens in the child.
I see. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to the third question. It's coming from Amy Sharma. Okay, one of the autistic child at play school complains about urinary tract infection rather frequently. That's the feedback from the parent. Why is that so? Do you have any idea why does the child often complains about UTI?
A lot of times UTI can happen because there is infection that comes from the feces that goes to the urinary tract area. So you might want to see how they teach the child on cleaning himself or herself when she goes to toilet. And this happens more often in girls compared to boys. So we need to actually learn to be private detectives, learning to figure out what are the habits that the child has or the parent has, on what kind of educational thing that the teacher actually can teach the parents on how to manage this.
I see. Okay, wow, I didn't know it's more prevalent amongst girls, yeah?
Because the back, the number 2 hole and the number 1 hole is very close.
Okay. Okay, so now moving on to the fourth question is from Maria Jeanette. Okay, Maria's son has diabetes and as well as autism. So her son is 17 years old, and she would like to know if you would be able to advise any particular nutritious food or diet to recommend to her child.
Okay, this is a very I would say quite complex, because I would really need to know what is the current food diary that the child is having, what kind of nutrition that he is having, when the diabetes was diagnosed, what are the treatment that was given, and what is the current situations that they have in their house. So I would not be able to tell us very specifically, but it's very, very important that every single person that come across me, I will always ask them to check the vitamin D level and give yourself a good dose of vitamin D.
Yeah, vitamin D, that's the way to go, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to our next question is coming from Konika Saha. Okay, so the question is, all the teachers in a particular school may not be trained to teach autistic children. So she would like to know, should special training not be given to teachers for dealing with such children?
Okay, I have actually a very different idea about teacher and about special need education.
Okay.
Majority of time when we are dealing with children in the spectrum, we realize that this child actually needs a one-to-one attention. And in school, whereby there are 40 students, 30 students in the classroom. The teacher, even though the teacher is highly trained, it would be a challenge to divide the attention of one person to 40 students, even with training. I would actually always recommend parents to start doing simple things that I put in the pointers earlier about this, the acceptance, seek to bond and celebrate. Just doing this actually and incorporate this in learning, the child actually can learn faster in an environment whereby without any noise or without disturbance. So it's actually, if we are going to talk about it, maybe we can sit here for 2 days. Yeah, thank you so much for asking.
Yeah, so I guess parents, you really need to be very patient. Just remember these 3 keywords: acceptance, seek to bond, and of course celebrate. Okay, so we have 6 questions coming from a Zoom participant, as Lalita Makesh. She would like to know, okay, for example, if a child has an obsession of keeping things in the hand, how would she be able to help the child to do away with the habit, you know, to overcome this habit? Yeah.
Okay, so as we have learned that the children have habits because they wanted to help themselves.
Oh.
If the thing, because the behavior that they actually have is something like this. When you are going to go for an interview, for instance, Annie, if you want to go for interview, then you will feel a bit nervous. Sometimes you will pace around in the room before you actually calm yourself down. The pacing is very important because then it really makes yourself able to center yourself.
I see.
And you are a normal person without neuroinflammation. Can you imagine a child with neuroinflammation? Their need of pacing is higher than you. So the child's habit of keeping thing in his hand, as long as this thing is not rotten or does not harm his health or does not harm himself, like it's a knife, I will be okay, because then it helps him or her. We should not take it away from the child.
Yeah, as long as the object is not harmful, I guess, yeah, parents should just let the child hold on to the item in the hand. Yeah. Very good advice there. Okay, so moving on to question number 7, it's also from a Zoom participant. Okay, Maimuna Arfa. So Maimuna would like to know, can an autistic child consume milk?
Okay, so one of the most inflammatory food is dairy, and it is milk. Now there are more studies showing that cow's milk is not actually a good nutrient for human, and especially for those in the spectrum, because what happened is that the milk can go into the bloodstream and turn into a calciumorphin, which is something unlike morphine.
Wow.
And cause the child to be less perceptive in things around them.
I see. So this is more for cow's milk. How about goat's milk? It has the same effect?
Goat's milk, quote unquote, is less harmful, but still it has casein. Yeah.
I understand that. Yeah. After all, both are.
And those other milk that, you know, I talk about this because I am also on the path many years trying to figure out what milk my kids can drink, right? So even the milk, the alternative milk, the rice milk, the almond milk, the hazelnut milk, all these milk are packaged with sugar. So it is not a very good thing to give. And most of the soy that we have is genetically modified.
That's right.
Yeah, so it is not something that I would recommend. Actually, if you are not vegetarian, you can have bone broth. And you don't need to drink milk.
Yeah, that's
right.
There's
another alternatives out there that can replace milk.
Good point there, Dr. Deibby. Okay, so moving on to question number 8. It's coming from Manali Shah. this person would like to know exactly, some of your calming strategies that you use on your boys. Yeah, would you be able to share like 1 or 2 calming strategies?
Okay, so for the first one, he's into anime. He's onto Japanese manga.
Okay.
So when I'm with him, then we will discuss about it, and we will go on and on about the kind of situations or scenarios that happens in that manga or in that anime.
Okay.
And my second child, he likes drawing and he likes guitar.
Wow.
And we will be doing something. He will be doing his thing, I'll be doing my thing, but in the same room. The thing is that we need to understand there are periods of time when the child is overly stimulated. And this time we should not actually try them to do something. Only when they are connecting with you, only when they are looking at you, asking you to do something with them, then you are doing it with them. We should wait for the clue. We should not intrude them. We should not tell them, or even some parents, you should do this now. It doesn't happen that way, because if your child have chicken pox, you will not ask your child to do multiplication table while they are lying in bed recuperating from chicken pox. But when your child have neuroinflammation, they are basically unwell. So you need to wait for them to say, okay, now I can cook a bit, you can give me something. But you don't try to impose yourself on them. Wait, that is the key.
Yes, patience is the key, everyone. Yeah. So Manasha, I hope that answers your questions. Okay, moving on to the number 9th question. It's coming from Aisha Fidros. Okay, she would like to know if you can share any tips, with her to encourage a non-verbal autistic child to speak.
It is if the child have sound.
The sound.
Even the then when the child making the sound, you will be the detective to figure out what this means, and you will appreciate every sound that comes from the child. When the child likes to do something, you can just do that the same, like the child wants to put all the books in the house in the line. You will not quickly pack all the books back into the bookcase. You are going to take another book and line the books on the floor together with the child. I assure you, after some time, the child will eventually look at you. And during the time when the child look at you, then you can really appreciate the connection and tell the child, I think you are the most wonderful child in the world. Thank you for looking at me. So you need to be able to share your feeling, positive feeling about the connection that happened. And we will be able to encourage more of this in the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So moving on to question number 10, it's coming from Gaia Jose. So basically, Gaia's child is 2.5 years old. He is autistic and was diagnosed during his first year. So after some vigorous home therapy, he started with 1 followed by 2 or 3 words. And he would try to understand Gaia and Gaia's husband. So the question is, he is sometimes throwing tantrums and also during the night. Is there any advice you could share with Gaia on how she can manage that tantrums incidents?
Okay, when I first started in my journey, we have a very rigorous treatment on our second child, especially. Because we wanted to make sure that he will be able to reach a certain age, whereby a lot of experts say by 6, if he doesn't talk, he will never talk. So we put so much effort to get him to talk before 6. So we put on many hours for him to learn, and this rigorous treatment actually got him to say he would.
Okay.
But what happened is that he also became from a happy autistic boy to an unhappy autistic boy.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that pressure, I was talking about timing.
Okay.
When we do this rigorous training, we do not wait for the child. Many of the scenarios is that the child is being bombarded whether they want or they don't want, because timing is the essence. You need to have a certain hours in the day whereby the child is being trained. It's totally disrespectful, because if the child is unable to cope with the situation they're in, and we come with all the bombardment, of course, the result will be meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
So I suggest to pay more attention to what the child is telling you, whether the child had it enough or the child is enjoying themselves. If they enjoy themselves when you're doing your rigorous treatment, you can continue. When a child is crying and screaming, you do not continue with that kind of situation. I think as a parent, I want to tell you something. Parents, you know more about your child than anyone in the world. You are the best advocate for your child. Have that confidence, and if something that you see make you feel uncomfortable, please act on it.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next question is coming from Dorothy Ortega. Okay, Dorothy has a very interesting question. She would like to know, what is your day-to-day routine as a mom with children with ASD like? Yeah, maybe you can.
Okay, I want to tell you, I have a hack. The hack is the child's nanny. We have a nanny for the past 13 years, and she's the most amazing, wonderful person in the world. Okay, so I woke up in the morning, then after that I go to the center, and then I will see clients. Then when I came back home in the afternoon, then I will say hi to my second son, and he will say hi and he will run. And I will try to see when he has the mood to see me, and I'll sit with him when he wants me. Then I will also spend time with my 3 other children.
Okay.
Emmanuel is a teenage now. I need to persuade him and get to bribe him with stories or something that might interest him to get out of his room.
Mm-hmm.
But my younger kids, number 3 and number 4, they are very cute, and I really love spending time with them. And of course, at the end of the evening, then I'll be having dinner with everyone, and my husband will be there, and I will be talking with my husband, and I will start checking my emails and my phone and everything else, and I sleep pretty late. Okay, so that is a very truthful answer.
That sounds like a very packed routine you have there, Dr. Deibby.
Yes, it's very fulfilling, because I do what I like.
Okay.
I do what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And in the same time, I have the privilege to share about my life to so many people. So I like doing what I'm doing.
Wonderful. Hope that answers your question, Dorothy. Okay, so I've got the next one, coming from a Zoom participant. It's from Khalid Aziz. Okay, Khalid would like to know, how can he make a child study without having to force the child to do so?
Make the study, make the subject so amazingly interesting that there is nothing in the world can be more interesting than that.
Oh, that's gonna be quite challenging. Yeah.
It is not. If they think that calculus is the most interesting thing,
Okay.
then make yourself, if you are like really love something, share that love with the child. If you are a biologist and you think plants is super cool, then you share about it with the child. But don't try to force them doing something they don't want.
Yeah.
If you want them to like it, then first you need to like what they like first. It's the fundament of making relationship. It is like when you want to befriend someone, when you want to be a girlfriend or a boyfriend of someone.
Okay.
You need to know what that guy is interested with. You need to know what the girl is interested with before you actually wanting them eventually to like what you like.
Yes,
You need to have that connection first.
Yes.
Build the connection before the learning. I assure you that when you are interested with something, you are more learning faster than ever. Some people learn like foreign language. Maybe in Singapore, we have mother tongue. Some people learn Chinese for 15 years and they would say, I don't really speak Chinese. But some people go to China, spend a few weeks, months there, and suddenly they sound like a fluent speaker because they are very interested with the language. So it is not about how you force someone to learn. It's how you make the object of the subject interesting for that person.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Deibby. Okay, everyone, I've got time for a couple more questions because we're running out of time. So please keep your questions coming. We'll move on to the next question. It's coming from Diane Afinidad. Okay, so Diane would like to know what specific type of intervention or therapy help did your children get that you find was most effective on them?
The relationship therapy.
Intervention.
So it is the one that I was talking about, the love-based mindset therapy. So now there are things out there called sunrise therapy or global autism solutions therapy. And this is something that got to do with parents learning to love themselves, parents learning how to love their children. And only with this kind of connection, then the child will want to learn something. So this is the most effective, not by rigorous training. Rigorous training might produce a certain thing, but I would assure you that there is no relationship formed in rigorous training.
Okay, so moving on to our final last two questions. This is coming from Priya Dashini. Okay, Priya would like to know, are there any brain-based exercises that can actually help autistic children and children with learning disorders? And can you also recommend some motor exercises?
Yes, actually there are so many studies out there that shows the exercise helps with to recover brain injuries.
Okay.
In a lot of the kids that has neuroinflammation, long years of inflammation can actually lead to brain injury.
Wow. Okay.
And this actually, one thing that I would like to, of course, in my center, I do a lot of nutritional help for them, which actually remove some handicaps. But for those who doesn't have access to it, exercises is good. Exercise increase the consumption of oxygen. When there are more oxygen in our body, in our brain, then the ability of the recovery is higher. So it is important to do exercises. If the child can do is more high functioning, you can also do yoga or meditation kind of exercises, because this actually very calming and it reduces a lot of inflammation.
Okay, thank you so much. And this is going to be our final question for today. It's coming from Chris Gorion. Well, Chris would like to know if, how would he know if a child has a tongue-tie problem? So basically, his son is pre-verbal but babbling. So he is not really able to communicate much. And he is 6 years old and has been going through some speech therapy. Is there any tips you can share with Chris?
Okay, so a lot of times we thought that it is the tongue that has issues. But a lot of times what actually happens is that there might be a certain neuroinflammation that happens with the child. And this can prevent the child from speaking because the frontal part of the brain is the area whereby the speech coming from. And if that area is affected, then the child's ability to speak is hindered. You can start with doing the, when the child is doing something, try to connect with the child. Make yourself available and make yourself connected with the child and make the child wants to say something to you. If you are receptive and the child is thinking of you as a person, okay, I know now this is my mother and my mother likes to see what I'm doing, or she is not scolding me when I am doing what I like to do, or she's helping me, she is very helpful, then the child is more willing to say something, to convey something. And during these exercises, you are training the motivation of the child.
Mm-hmm.
When the child is motivated to say something, there's nothing that can stop the child from speaking.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Deibby. Okay, we would love to take on more questions. However, due to time constraint, we are unable to do so. But hey, good news is we shall be compiling all questions and answers, and we'll be sharing them with you along with a video recording over the next couple of working days through emails. And additionally, we will also be sending emails to you first for you to complete a short survey, and we surely hope to receive your support. Okay, moving along, maybe Dr. Deibby, we can move on to the final slide. Yes, the final slide. Yes, this is the one that I would like to showcase to everyone. Okay, so moving along, we'll now launch part 2 of the polling segment. And I'll be making this segment available for the next 10 seconds. Okay, so what I need everyone to do is to simply, cast your vote. Just so you know, polling segment is very important because it will give us a rough idea of what type of topics or subjects we can incorporate for our upcoming webinar. So please go ahead and cast your votes right now. Okay, and of course, for those of you who are watching this live on Facebook, not to worry, you can also actually get a copy of the recording through YouTube as well as the live stream on Facebook as well. Okay, so I guess for now, I'm going to end the poll segment right now. Thank you so much for voting, everyone. And okay, for most importantly right now, I'd like to inform everyone in case you'd like to inquire or perhaps schedule a consultant with Dr. Deibby. You may do so by contacting or writing into IHC, where Dr. Deibby's clinic is located at Funan Mall. Okay, so the contact details can all be found on this slide here. Okay, but not to worry, towards the end of the webinar, we will also be sharing with you, a copy of this slide, and you will have access to all the details, all the contact details, okay? All right, so looks like that's all the time we have for today. Dr. Deibby, really thank you so much for, spending your Saturday with us. And
my pleasure.
And importantly, sharing your personal experience with us. I must say it has been extremely insightful, just by simply listening to your experience. And of course, before we end, Dr. Deibby, do you have any words of encouragement for everyone, especially, to parents out there? Yeah.
I have a few words of encouragement. First, do not despair. There is hope. Second, parents, caregiver, teachers, you are this child's best advocate. You need to, if you love these children, you need to understand that you have the power in you to let them bloom. And lastly, as my son says, love is the answer.
Oh yes, you're right. Love is the answer, everyone. Okay.
I believe love will find a way.
Well, that's a Korean heart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everyone. With that, we shall wrap up today's session. And indeed, thank you so much for spending a Saturday with us. And till the next webinar, you have a great weekend. And of course, stay safe. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.